Thank you very much for yielding me the time. I'm very pleased, Mr. Speaker, to join my colleagues and people throughout the United States to celebrate Black History Month. It may come as a surprise to some that Black History Month is also celebrated in Canada and the United Kingdom, although they do so in the United Kingdom in the month of October. Thanks to the hard work and persistence of Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, the celebration of Black history was inaugurated in 1926. In response to Mr. Woodson's advocacy, it was to be for 1 week, the second week in February, in order to envelop the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln, February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, February 14th. First proposed by students at Kent University in 1969 and 70, the week was officially expanded to a month in 1976. Gerald Ford was president at the time. When the month was established, President Ford urged the country to, and I quote, honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans, end of quote. A lot of talk about health care these days, and in no area has the contributions of African Americans been more neglected and dishonored as much as in the field of health care. How many people are aware of the contributions of Charles Drew, who unlocked the secrets that led to the ability to perform blood transfusions, or Daniel Hale Williams, who performed the first successful open-heart surgery, or Samuel Kuntz, who performed the first successful kidney transplant not done on identical twins. Because of these and many other slights in many other fields, Mr. Speaker, I have not always celebrated this occasion with pleasure. During those discussions back in the late 60s and early 70s, I and many others felt that the appropriate action was not just to expand from 1 week to a month, but to mandate the incorporation of African Americans' contributions and achievements throughout the curricula of all our schools year-round. But with each passing day, I grow more and more appreciative and respectful of the lesson taught in 1 Corinthians 11:13, which I shared with you in Jim Clyburn's version. And I quote, "When I was a child, young and inexperienced, I spoke with the reasoning and understanding of a child. But as I grew and matured, I put those childish thoughts, expressions, and ways behind me. I have come to understand, Mr. Speaker, that Black History Month is not only about celebrating past achievements and contributions, it is also a time for reflection and introspection. Aristotle once intoned, "A life without contemplation is not worth living." I have spent a lot of introspective moments over the last several weeks. And over the last several days, I have reflected on the comments made by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. at the annual meeting of the Medical Committee for Human Rights back in 1966, when he said, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health care is the most shocking and inhumane. That is what was on my mind when I addressed this House on the day that we passed the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. On that occasion, I referred to the Affordable Care Act as the Civil Rights Act of the 21st century. It may seem a bit odd to some to hear the Affordable Care Act referred to as the Civil Rights Act, but that is exactly what it is. The Affordable Care Act outlawed discrimination against children with pre-existing conditions, outlawed discrimination against people with disabilities. It outlawed discrimination against women just because they are women. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that we have grown and matured beyond where we were when our country allowed insurance companies to discriminate against women with breast cancer and men with prostate cancer. I would like to believe, Mr. Speaker, that we have put behind us the childish practice of kicking children off of their family insurance policies as soon as they turn 21, even if they are still in school or have not yet found employment. And, Mr. Speaker, what could be more childish and immature than allow insurance companies to deny benefits to the sick and disabled in order to gain big bonuses and payouts for executives? These arguments are not new. In fact, they are reminiscent of an age-old debate. 50 years ago, during my years of student protest, there were those who urged us to slow down. You are pushing too hard, too fast, they would say. Some of those who wanted a slower approach claimed to be on our side, like those 8 white ministers who implored Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to slow down, arguing that Christianity took 2,000 years to accomplish all it has. Those ministers believed that the escalation of marches and demonstrations to secure civil rights was unwise and untimely. In 1963, while sitting in the Birmingham City Jail, Dr. King started penning a letter that, of course, he finished after leaving jail. But in that letter, he dealt with the whole issue of time. In his letter, Dr. King said, time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. Dr. King continued, more and more I feel that the people of ill will have used time much more effectively than the people of goodwill. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Dr. King continued, human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men, and I might add women, willing to be co-workers with God, and without his hard work, time itself an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that time is always right to do right. I believe these words ring true today in our current situation. Our nation had waited for nearly a century to find a way to bring all its citizens into the healthcare system. The time was right to do right for the American people. And with that, Mr. Speaker,